Now, my 70s guest. 50 years ago, Chris Difford formed Squeeze in 1973 after putting an advert in a sweet shop window. And the only person to reply was Glen Tilbrook, and so Squeeze was born. Chris is celebrating the band's half-century with a new tour called Not Only But Also. It's a mixture of what he calls stand up and sit down. He'll be telling stories of his early life on a South London council estate, mixed in with live music accompanied by pedal steel player Melvin Duffy. I chatted to Chris earlier on this week. He picked a few of his favourite songs growing up, including this one by Gilbert O'Sullivan. That's Gilbert O'Sullivan and Alone Again Naturally, and that's chosen by our My 70s guest this afternoon, Chris Difford. Chris, a very good afternoon.
Nice to be on air with you.
And how are you?
Yeah, I'm generally very good.
And you're going out on tour. How is that going to be? Are you with other musicians or on your own or what?
I'm going out at the end of the year with my stand-up show, and I take my good friend Melvin Duffy, who plays pedal steel with me. And then before that, Squeeze are playing some festivals, but we're also going to America for 6 weeks. So it's a very, very busy time to be back on stage.
Now, how old were you when you started writing songs, and what made you think that you could?
I'm still trying to convince myself that I can. Well, I was just influenced by listening to the radio, listening to you on the radio, listening to music that was flooding our lives in those days.
So you got songs. You needed a guitarist and a vocalist. Does that famous note that you put in the newsagent's window?
I wanted to keep it local, and that's why I put the ad in the sweet shop window. Glen Tilbrook was pretty much the only person to answer that call. It was a very amazing coming together, really. I didn't expect that we'd still be here after 50-odd years.
Going back to other song choices from you, next up we've got Elton John and Rocket Man.
I saw him recently at the Glastonbury Festival, and it brought a tear to my eye because there's a man who knows how to retire and how to embrace an audience of 80,000 plus people in a field. When I went to see him at Wembley Stadium supporting the Beach Boys, he played the Captain Fantastic album from beginning to end. And nobody had heard of it at the time. But what it gave to me was a real sense of ambition. You know, this man can create this kind of incredible repertoire of songs. I'd love to be able to replicate that.
She packed my bags last night, pre-flight.
Elton John and Rocket Man, chosen by our My 70s guest, Chris Difford. So America beckons later on this year. When you first went, how was that for an experience?
Well, 5 skinny blokes from South London jump in a minibus and literally drive around for 3 months playing to people who were not really that interested in Squeeze. They were into ZZ Top and, Styx and bands like that, which is fine, but they weren't into us. So it took some going back. We went back several times, and then eventually we managed to get onto college radio, and college radio was really the way that we managed to get into the psyche there.
Then another hit record in 1979, I think it was, Cool for Cats. Got to number 2 in the charts. Was that an easy song to write, or did it take a while?
It was pretty simple insofar as we had the backing track, and I remember sitting down trying to think of what to write. Eventually the lyric came to me, and Glenn and John Wood asked me to read the lyric, I guess, over the backing track, which is what I did, and that became the actual track itself. So that was a very strange moment in time.
The Indians send signals from the rocks above the pass. The cowboys take position.
That's Squeeze and Cool for Cats, chosen by our guest Chris Difford. Is it too personal a question to ask how you get along with Glenn these days?
Yeah, it's not a bad question to ask. We've been together 50 years, and I think one of the secrets of our relationship is understanding our differences and also our similarities, because our songs I'm very proud of, and all the hard work that Glenn puts into the records that we make is something very special for us both. And I think we both respect each other in that way. Like any relationship, that last that time. You have your curveballs and you have your ups and downs. But essentially, God has put us on this planet to be together to perform these songs to our fans, and I'm very grateful for all of those songs.
What is your favourite Squeeze song?
I think that probably changes from day to day, but I suppose the most accepted of them all would be Up the Junction.
That's Squeeze and Up the Junction. What's going to be like playing the Edinburgh Fringe? Have you been there before?
I've played it twice before. It's hard work because you're basically on your own. You have a 50-minute show. This time I'm doing it completely stand-up, really. It's something that I've learned to absolutely love because you're storytelling, but you have a rhythm that you have to keep to. And if you lose the thread, it's hard work to jump back in. So it's very different from being on stage with Squeeze. And this year it's a story about my life before Squeeze. It's about my life on a council estate in South London and all the people that I used to hang out with and what that was like.
You mentioned Elton at Glastonbury, another group that did very well at Glastonbury and also have done well with a new album, Sparks. What is it you love about Sparks?
Well, when they first came into my orbit with their very early albums, and in fact it inspired me, and it inspired Glen too, to write a whole bunch of songs which we've never released, but we're going to hopefully release the whole album next year as a surprise to everybody.
And for now, what Sparks song should we play to end on?
This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us, because it was a real thrill to hear something that didn't really have, you know, like the toe-tapping rhythm of other songs that were on Top of the Pops. It had sort of stops and starts, and it was inventive, and it was bizarre, and it was everything that Squeeze became in a way.
All right, Chris, thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
And good luck with your busy summer and autumn.
Thank you so much.
Zoo time, is she a new time? The mammals are your favourite time.
That's Sparks, and This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us, the final choice of a My 70s guest, Chris Difford. Chris's not only but also stand-up and music tour begins on the 10th of November at the Hub Club in Hampton. And Squeeze are playing UK festivals in August, including the Rewind Festival, Stone Valley Midlands Festival, and the Moseley Folk and Arts Festival. And then they head off for a tour of the United States. And Chris is also playing dates across the UK, starting on the 10th of August at Neil's in Kensington in London, and is playing the Edinburgh Fringe later on this month. He's having a busy year.